In January, President Trump signed an executive order pausing all USAID projects. By March, the White House confirmed the plan. USAID would be folded into the State Department, and most of its programs would be permanently shut down. On paper, this may have looked like a large saving. USAID cost around $30 billion a year, but it's not really. It's about the same amount as what Americans spend every year at Starbucks. $30 billion spread out across the whole population works out at about $90 each. And for that price, USAID funded vaccines, clean water, education, and food security programs across dozens of countries. Millions of people depended on them. But the real cost is much more terrible. Research published in the Lancet, one of the world's leading medical journals, warns that cutting these programs could cause 14 million premature deaths in the next 5 years. 14 million lives lost prematurely for a saving of $90. Supporters of the cuts, including Donald Trump and Elon Musk, call this efficiency. They argue aid is politicized, that it props up corrupt regimes, and that it fosters dependency rather than growth. And to be fair, many economists agree foreign aid has flaws. There's corruption, waste, and weak oversight. So in this video, we ask 2 questions. First, are the claims that USAID is failing justified? And secondly, from a purely economics perspective, is it efficient to cut the funding? As you will see, the data gives us clear answers on these. And it shows us that the current direction is not just controversial, it's economically irrational. But to begin, we need to go back a bit and ask, where did foreign aid lose its way? Foreign aid took off after the Second World War with the Marshall Plan. The US poured the equivalent of $160 billion into rebuilding Europe. It was a spectacular success. Europe recovered quickly, trade revived, and aid became a permanent fixture of global policy. But during the Cold War, the objective shifted. It became less about fighting poverty and more about securing allies. Both the US and the Soviet Union funneled money into Africa, Asia, and Latin America, often with strings attached. By the 1990s, with the Cold War over, the focus shifted again to humanitarian relief, global health, and poverty reduction. And there were real wins. Smallpox was eradicated. PEPFAR and the Global Fund cut AIDS deaths by millions. Malaria and polio cases plunged. Aid built schools, roads, and health systems across some of the poorest countries. But poverty itself proved stubborn. Nearly 700 million people still live below the international poverty line. And the biggest reductions didn't come from aid at all, but from rapid growth in countries like China and India, driven by trade and domestic reforms, not foreign dollars. That's why the debate has reignited. And not just in America, cuts are happening in the UK, France, and across donor countries. So what went wrong? Well, firstly, the economic incentives are misaligned for all of the actors. That's for donors, aid agencies, and the government of the country receiving aid. Donors are rarely motivated purely by poverty reduction. Aid often serves geopolitical ends, helping to prop up regimes that align with strategic interests rather than those that deliver growth. For international aid agencies, there's little reward in solving a problem outright. Their fundraising campaigns thrive on images of suffering and ongoing crisis, not on announcing what targets they have achieved in the past. And for recipient governments, the perverse incentive is to stay poor, or at least look poor, because the flow of money depends on it. Secondly, the institutional arrangements are also badly structured. Aid rarely works the way people think. Studies show that only about 12% of funds ever reach local organisations. The rest gets absorbed by international NGOs, contractors, and UN bodies, an opaque world of overheads and administration. China takes a very different approach. Instead of wiring cash, it sends engineers. Ports, railways, power plants spring up fast. It's visible, it's concrete, but often leaves little behind in terms of skills or sustainable jobs. And then there's corruption. In some countries, 20 to 30% of aid is siphoned off before it reaches its target, into offshore accounts, inflated contracts, or outright theft. The result? Vast sums never touch the schools, hospitals, or villages they were meant to support. It's true that the situation is appalling. That is why a lot of people listen sympathetically to Elon Musk calling USAID hopeless and beyond repair and saying that it was time for it to die. But the truth is, USAID isn't beyond repair. It's just that no one has seriously tried to fix it. If aid money was once used to prop up dictators, we shouldn't be surprised it failed to generate growth. That's politics, not development. And if Elon Musk is now calling for a more targeted approach focused on achieving economic growth rather than political influence, then most economists and aid agencies would welcome this. International agencies have already started responding to the criticisms. There's been a shift toward results-based payments, where money only flows once schools actually open, children are vaccinated, or roads are built. It helps to align incentives so that donors pay for outcomes, not promises. Another big breakthrough has been direct cash transfers. Instead of sending in food, equipment, or consultants, agencies and charities now sometimes just send poor families money, often through mobile phones. And the results are striking. Most recipients use it sensibly, buying food, improving their homes, paying school fees, or starting small businesses. Studies show it often delivers more impact, at lower cost, than many traditional aid programs weighed down by overheads. Other experiments are underway too: microfinance, impact investing, digital IDs, and the push to channel more funding directly to local organizations, rather than big international NGOs. Some of these are promising, others have underwhelmed, but they show that the situation is not hopeless, as Elon Musk says, rather it is full of potential. Consequently, the plan to simply cut off funding is wrong on many levels. But as this is an economics video, I'm just going to address the economics question. Does cutting USAID's funding make sense from an efficiency perspective? Let's run the numbers. The program would cost in total about $150 billion over 5 years, and is estimated to save 14 million lives. That's about $11,000 per life saved. Compare that to benchmarks used by US agencies like the Department of Transportation or the EPA. They routinely value a life at $10 to $12 million. Europe puts it at around 5 million euros. Even global studies, adjusted for income, put the figure at about $1.3 million. So USAID, even in its currently flawed form, is delivering value 100 to 1,000 times greater than the global benchmarks. The results could not be more clear. If you care about efficiency, you wouldn't be cutting the program, you'd be expanding it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks for watching.